staff, dedicated board, Cohort 11, Pardes students and alum, PEP alumni, teaching coaches, families, and friends, to the concluding ceremony honoring the 10th graduating class of the Pardes Educators Program. Thank you for joining us as we recognize the accomplishments of these 14 exceptional men and women. Machzor Eser, our 10th cohort, reminds me of the 10 Jews needed to make a minyan. While a Jew can find meaning in individual prayer, certain key ceremonies and portions of tefillah can only be fulfilled in a community of 10. It is that minyan which adds an extra dimension to individual expression. That community which unites Jews in sharing some of the most important moments in Jewish life. Over the last 2 years, Cohort 10 has been an outstanding model of hardworking, talented individuals made even stronger through shared experience, collaboration, and true caring for one another. The closeness you have fostered as a cohort has inspired us all. We appreciate the hard work of the 2 boards of the Pardes Institute in Israel and in North America, whose dedication have enabled our graduates to reach this milestone. I am pleased to introduce John Corey, Chair of the Pardes Board in Israel, to offer greetings.
Thank you, Julie. Avodim, Cohort 10, everybody. This is a special moment for me. This is the 3rd time I've been privileged to be here, and remarkably also the 3rd time I've been asked to speak. And it really is the highlight of the year, because based on past experience, these people are very special people. I'm not going to speak very long. I just first of all want to say thank you very much indeed to the Avichai Foundation, represented tonight by Sarah Cass. Avichai has done incredible amounts for Pardes and for the Jewish world. I'm very interested in etymology, and whether it be an English word or a Hebrew word, it's always interesting to see where it came from. And if you look at the word education, education comes, of course, from the Latin. It comes from a Latin word, educare. Educare, interestingly, doesn't mean to impart knowledge. Educare in Latin actually means to bring forth potential. And it actually comes from another Latin word, jucere. That's the same word without the E. And that is to lead. And it seems to me very appropriate that we have those 2 aspects, both of the bringing forth of the potential and the leadership, which I'm sure Cohort 10, when they go, I was going to say go back, when they go to the United States and teach there, they will, I'm sure, bring forth the potential of their students and lead them in a Jewish way. Thank you all very much indeed.
Thank you, John. Since 2006, we have worked closely with esteemed colleagues from Hebrew College who have developed an innovative Master of Jewish Education, which complements our students' Beit Midrash learning here at Pardes. We are honored to welcome Dr. Rabbi Karen Rees-Medwed, who has come from Boston to share this special occasion with our graduates.
Thanks, Judy. You can play some more. It really is an honor to be able to be here tonight and to convey the congratulations and greetings of the president of Hebrew College, Rabbi Daniel Lehman, who was really particularly saddened that he couldn't be at this cohort's graduation on account of Hebrew College's graduation happening just yesterday through the evening. But he feels like he has spent much quality time with this cohort, particularly at 1 o'clock in the morning. And He sends his warmest regards and wanted to be sure that I convey to everyone that PEP really is a strong and important program for us at Hebrew College. It is the vision that we hold for the nexus of applied research, theory, and practice, allows us to participate in such a special and unique space where these young individuals go out and join this cadre of Jewish professionals who bring with them a passion for lifelong Jewish learning and for learner-centered pedagogy, and it's a thrill to be part of that journey with them. It's also very special, and we would just like to take a moment to thank Dr. Judy Marcos for this partnership and for this. And finally, a thank you to the graduates for allowing us to not just be your teachers for your Master's in Jewish Education from Hebrew College, but also to be your students as you taught us in so many interesting and different ways. And as I thought about the big idea that might capture that feeling, I thought, Chochmat Lev. So I bless you tonight that your Chochmat Lev, the wisdom of your heart, the wisdom to follow the passions of your heart, guide you as you go out into the field next year, and we hope you stay in touch. Mazal tov.
Thank you, Karen. As we celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Pardes Educators Program, we pay tribute to our funder and partner, the Avichai Foundation. We have benefited in so many ways from Avichai's commitment to achieving excellence in the day school world in North America. We are especially appreciative of their continued vision and their involvement in the ongoing efforts to make our program even stronger and more forward-looking. We are grateful to the trustees, to Yossi Prager, Executive Director, Avichai North America, Arthur Freed, Chair of the Avichai Foundation, and Dr. Michael Berger, our Program Officer, for their advice, support, and vision. It is my privilege to invite Sarah Cass, Director of Strategy and Evaluation, to address the graduates.
Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here. I was asked by Arthur a few days ago to come in his stead, and that's a hard thing to do, but I'll try. And I want to start by just congratulating Pardes on the amazing work that you continue to do that inspires all of us. And in as much as you say thank you to us, really we are the ones who say thank you to you. You continue to bless our world with amazing people and an ongoing commitment to what's best. When I was asked to say a few words, I thought a little bit about what I want to say, and I had a couple of thoughts. First was to tell you, graduates who are about to become teachers, about a report you may have heard called the McKinsey Report on Education, which suggests that those nations in the world that thrive are those nations that have excellent schools. And the excellent schools exist in those nations because those nations send their best and brightest into teaching. And so I thought I would say to you that we in the Jewish nation are incredibly encouraged and can sleep a little better tonight knowing that you, among our best and brightest, are going into education. I then thought about saying to you that not only are you going forth to be teachers of our future, you are getting to be teachers in a revolutionary age. And I thought of asking you to imagine what it must have been like to become a teacher in the 1440s, sometime after Gutenberg had created the printing press, and how it might have felt to walk into a classroom and start to teach something, and your students would say, why should I memorize this? Or why should I listen to what you have to say or remember what you have to say? I have a book. But you, and I imagine that I would say to you, you too are going into a revolutionary age. You might call it the Zuckerberg age, where just like in the Gutenberg age, the access to information is being transformed and the way the human mind works is being transformed. And when you go into your classrooms, you may have to face the proposition that kids will say, why should I show up in school at all when there's Google? And I thought of telling you that going into teaching at this time, you are probably not only going to be witnessing transformation in what a school looks like and feels like and does, but you may very well be involved in leading that transformation. But then I realized there was something else that I wanted to say to you, having nothing to do with those two things, or perhaps deeper than those two things. And really what I want to ask you is a question. And here's the question. How will you carry the fruit you are bringing forward from your sojourn in this Pardes, in this orchard? And I want to offer to you two versions of how we carry fruit, or how we could carry fruit. One of them is from a parsha coming up in a week and a half, and the other one has to do with the tradition of Shavuot, which is coming up tomorrow night. In Parshat Shlach, we are told that the Meraglim go into Eretz Israel to spy out the land, and they come back with fruit. And they show, it says in verse 26 of the Parsha, V'yam'um et pri ha'aretz, and they show the people the fruit of the land. And then they go on to tell them all these awful things about what's going on in the land of Israel, and how there are these giants and these terrible things. And the fruit gets lost in the telling. And in fact, they terrify the people of Israel with these big horrors that they're reporting. And I want to suggest to you that that way of carrying fruit is carrying it as a commodity, as a thing that can be shown, and a thing that then gets drowned out by much larger things that get shown. And so the fruit gets forgotten. But if we look at the Chag Shavuot, the Chag HaBikurim, which draws on the notion in the Torah discussed in various places, but among them Dvarim, where it says that when you come into the land, the first thing we're supposed to do is to take our first fruits and not show them, but bring them as gifts. Bring them as gifts to God. And in this description, it's not just that we're just bringing them as gifts. We're bringing them because they're bringing forth the meaning of who we are as a people, and why it is that we've come into the land. And finally, it says after we're supposed to tell the story of why it is we're bringing these gifts, it says, "V'samachta b'kol hatov, b'chol hatov, asher natan lecha Adonai Elohecha ulbeitecha, ata v'halevi v'ager." And the idea of bringing forth the gift inspires this sense of rejoicing, of this incredible gratitude. And so my question to you is, how are you going to carry forth your fruits as you go forth from this time in this land? And I think that, like many, many teachers going forward, you're among the best and the brightest. And like many teachers going forward, you're going to rise to the challenges of what it means to teach in the Zuckerberg age. But what you have is the opportunity to do something even greater, which is to carry the fruits that you've garnered from your time here as gifts. Because you have learned in a place that does that. You have learned in a place that rare among learning institutions passes on knowledge not as something inert, as a show and tell, but as a gift that keeps on giving. And so our hope for you is that you bring that fruit forward in that spirit of giving. And we look forward one day not only to hearing what happens in your triumphs in schools, but to watching some of those students of yours come forth and continue to bring forward this living gift of our Torah. And we wish you a mazal tov.
We have one more greeting. The Jim Joseph Foundation funds the Pardes Educators Alumni Support Project, helping both our novice and more veteran educators to grow as teachers and to find challenge and satisfaction in the field. Chip Edelsberg, Executive Director of the Jim Joseph Foundation, sent us his greetings. Congratulations to you on this significant and I hope memorable achievement. We at the Jim Joseph Foundation recognize Pardes educators to be among the elite in the field. Your passion for Judaism and textual fluency, your love of Israel and all its complexity, these attributes make for powerful pedagogy. Teach with humility and strive to continuously improve your knowledge and professional practice. Today, who join 99 other Pardes graduates of this program. The Jim Joseph Foundation exhorts you to participate fully in the robust program provided to the alumni. You are fortunate to have this kind of attention, care, and skill building awaiting you. Please do make the most of it. Best of luck in your endeavors. We look forward to tracking your progress in the righteous work you will do. And again, congratulations. Cohort 10 is a diverse group made up of talented individuals. Each brings his or her own voice to Pardes and to the classroom. This evening we have a special treat, as we will hear all of our graduates share Divrei Torah and personal reflections. I am delighted to introduce our first speaker, Yoni Shir.
As many of my friends and colleagues know, I have certain texts that I have come to love. These texts have become my bread and butter, and I always seem to have them in the back of my mind, no matter what it is that I may be learning, or for that matter, teaching. One such text is the 24 prakim long account of the transfer of leadership within the Jewish people, known as Sefer Yehoshua. Now, because the majority of you sitting in this room are sitting behind Cohort 10, you are unable to see many in my cohort rolling their eyes and even shifting in their seats as they are ready for me to go off on a tangent about using various biblical maps while we try to explain the various battles and takeovers of Yehoshua. Please relax, I'm not going to do that. The color copier was down at Kinko's and Staples was closed. There's always a next time. I would like to bring up the Milim Manchot, the reoccurring words, in Perek Aleph of Sefer Yehoshua as my foundation for the brief talk, and hopefully as a means for us to begin to correct our mindset as we begin our various journeys in the classroom. First, some backstaging. Moshe has passed away, and Yehoshua, his right-hand man, is chosen to take over the leadership of the Jewish people. In my eyes, it's a logical choice, as Yehoshua has proven himself. He has been loyal, as he was one of the scouts who came back with a positive report of the land in Sefer Bamidbar, and his ability to fight, as he showed Amalek in Sefer Shemot. But towards the end of Devarim, right before Moshe dies, God says two words to Yehoshua that he ends up repeating to Yehoshua even after his mentor, Moshe, passes away. God says to Yehoshua, Chazak ve'amatz, be strong and of good courage, as the transition of power, leadership, and responsibility takes place. If you count the times that God says it in Devarim, and the times that he says it in the first parak of Sefer Yehoshua, he tells Yehoshua 5 times, Chazak ve'amatz. Why? Isn't Yehoshua already ready for this? Hasn't he had enough practice for taking over? And more than that, it takes Yehoshua 9 psukim to even respond to God's confidence in him. So why? Well, I think we can look within ourselves in order to find these answers. I see us, I'm only talking to us, first row, no one else is here. I see us and where we are right now in our lives as Yehoshua saw himself getting ready to take on the great task and arguably the greatest undertaking in our collective Jewish past. We've taken all of our classes. We've taken all the classes we need to. We've written our papers. We've reflected, and we have shared. Yes, we are ready. But just like Yehoshua, many of us are going to be a little silent as we start our next year. We're going to be very careful, calculated, and dare I even say, a little humbled by our undertaking. Despite all of the chazak ve'ematz that our teachers, coaches, and each other have given, I imagine that it might take some time for us to come into our own and really feel ownership over our classrooms, which can be looked upon as our own little B'nai Yisrael. Thanking all of the teachers, rebbeim, coaches, and colleagues that I would need to thank is, I think, even a greater undertaking than Yehoshua had. So a collective Todah Rabbah goes out to all of you in this room. Your thoughts, help, conversations, and of course humor have been so valuable over the past 2 years, and I know our relationships will continue in the years to come. There are 2 personal thank yous, however. First, a thank you to my parents, who have always been my most favorite teachers in my life. And of course to Michal, thank you for being my constant chazak ve'ematz during these past years. I know I wouldn't have been as successful as I would have been without you cheering me on, and I can't wait for our next parak in our lives together. Toda rabah. I'd now like to call up my friend, my colleague, and my chavruta, Kelly Cohen.
God was once a first-year teacher. He came into his new classroom. He turned on the lights. He hung things on the walls. He put everything away in its proper place. He looked around and he said, "Kitov, this looks pretty good." Then God got his first 2 students. They were ideal students. God thought, I couldn't have made better students than these if I tried. For a while, things were good. The students tended to the classroom pets. God laid out the classroom rules, and then one day, the students misbehaved. It's unclear what exactly happened. The Midrash reads like a classroom incident report told from many perspectives. What we do know is that something went terribly wrong at snack time. It might have been an issue of kids sharing snacks. We all know that is frowned upon. It might have been a breakdown in clarity of instruction. It might have been peer pressure. Or it might just have been that boys get a little crazy when they start noticing girls. God, being a first-year teacher, did not have the best classroom management skills. First, he tried to talk to the students to figure out what happened. Ultimately, though, he had to remove them from the classroom. And it is from this first classroom that God's story as a pedagogue begins. As a teacher, I read God as a pedagogue and watch his repertoire grow. This year, thanks God, we need more arts and crafts. Let's build an ark. Over the years, many different kinds of learners pass through God's classroom. There are visual learners, auditory learners, kinesthetic learners. God strives for, but is not always successful in differentiation. God's students rarely listen. The classroom rules are stated, and the students break them. They are posted on the wall for the visual learners, and the students literally break them. But God never stops trying. Being an educator brings a special meaning to being B'Tselem Elohim. As we step into our first classrooms, we'll be bringing with us the Dugma of God, the pedagogue. In our teaching, sometimes we'll succeed, and sometimes we won't. I want to bless us all with the fortitude to keep going. To remember that the work of being a teacher is holy because it's God's work. I want to take this opportunity to thank a few people who have helped me on my path to standing here today. Thanks goes to Naima Novetsky for encouraging me to find myself in the text, to Karen Rees-Medwed, who has taught me to listen and trust the voice inside myself, and to Aviva Goldberg, who always made me feel seen and heard. Finally, thank you to my husband, Drew. These past 4 years have been the greatest adventure of our lives. Thank you for being my partner on that adventure. I can't wait to see what happens next. It is now my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce my friend and colleague, David Payne.
Okay, so I had a really good Rashi that I wanted to talk about the purpose of learning. I'm going to give away the answer. According to Rashi, Tshuva and Ma'asim Tovim and good deeds. I think it's a fascinating Rashi and a really great discussion. I would love to have it with you all, but not now. Because I looked out my window after learning this Rashi, and I saw my neighbor. And I have to tell you about her because I think she symbolizes for me what has been my journey both at Pardes and what it'll be as my journey going out and teaching. So I don't know my neighbor's name, and I have to be honest, I look at her from my window at afar, and she walks with a little limp and a crutch, very slowly. It's extremely, extremely difficult. It takes her 45 minutes to walk a block. And I see she takes the taxi a block away. And I always think to myself, well, why doesn't she just take it to her house? What's another block? But every day she refuses. She gets off at least a block away and walks. Like this. Maybe this is even a little bit fast. And so after learning this Rashi, I look out my window and there she is, walking. And I thought, wow. This is exactly the type of person that I strive for in my learning, and I'm going to try to inspire in my teaching for my students. Somebody who steps back and steps up to the challenge. And could go the easy route, and steps back and says, you go the longer way, you get a little bit slower, maybe a little bit harder. It's probably going to take a lot more effort, but I'm going to do it. And I think, reflecting on my time here at Pardes, and looking out at all these wonderful teachers, that's what's been inspired in me. To take the step back and not go the shortcut, but take the longer way and a little bit slower. And I want to thank all of you for giving me the opportunity to step back and take the little longer way, a little bit slower. And I hope as a cohort that we can inspire our students to go that longer way, maybe a little bit harder, but at the end, I think it was amazing. And I'd like to introduce my esteemed colleague and teacher,
to us all. Water is a metaphor for Torah. Just as this parched land that we're sitting in today is in desperate need of water, I believe that every Jew is in desperate need of a little bit of Torah in their lives. This is the main reason why I decided to specialize in becoming a Jewish studies teacher instead of going into the general fields. My hope is to bring that little bit of Torah into the parched minds of the Jewish students. But I have a clause. I'm also being a little bit selfish, because my second hope is that my students will also bring Torah into my parched mind. In Pasuk Bet of Parak Aleph of Shir Shivim, it states, Yishakeni minishikot ilu kitovim dodecha miyayin. Let him kiss me with kisses of his mouth, for your love is better than wine. While the literal meaning of this verse speaks only of wine, the rabbis in Shir Shimon Rabbah, Sif Gimel, extend their understanding of this verse to include several different types of liquid, including wine, oil, honey, milk, and especially water, which we've already said is a metaphor for Torah. One part of this midrash truly sticks out in my mind as something very, very important for the teacher. Uma hamayim ein hagadol mitbayesh lomar letekan, hashkeni mayim, kach divrei Torah ein hagadol mitbayesh lomar letekan, lamdeni perak echad, davar echad, pasuk echad, ve'afilu ot echad. Just as with water, a grown person is not embarrassed to say to a child, can I have a drink of water? So too with words of Torah, a grown person should not be embarrassed to say to the child, teach me one chapter, one word, one sentence, and even one letter. In my journey up to this point, standing here in front of my colleagues, my family, my friends, and the larger Pardes community, my home for the last 3 years, I found myself at many points of water and Torah. Starting near Nachal Beersheba, where I first lived, volunteered, and fell in love with the land of Israel, to the drops of genius that have poured out of my teachers' mouths here, I learned one important lesson, that there's always more to learn and that everyone has something to teach, no matter their stage in life. My wish and my blessing for those who are going out in the world with me is that each of us continue our learning in the community that we have chosen, and most especially, be a little selfish, and not to be embarrassed to ask our students to fill our minds with sweet water. I have the honor to introduce my rock, my Hebrew friend, Dr. Spear.
One of the most important lessons that Pardes has taught me, beauty will never list as a goal of the program. Pardes has taught me how to make mistakes. Pardes has taught me the value of mistakes. Learning at Pardes is not about getting good grades. Pardes doesn't give grades. Pardes believes in Torah Lishma. Torah Lishma is usually translated as Torah for its own sake. Learning Torah for its own sake freed me to take risks in the learning, to study Gemara, Midrash, to make mistakes, to fail, to learn, and sometimes to even get it right. I made a lot of mistakes studying Torah at Pardes, and I thank my Hebrew partners for telling me when I got it wrong. More than that, I thank them for allowing me to pursue my mistakes, argue for my mistakes, because I learned more from my mistakes than I ever learned from my correct interpretations. Albert Einstein said, anyone who's never made a mistake has never tried anything new. Albert Einstein made a lot of mistakes. He learned from his mistakes. Generations of physicists learned from his mistakes and even built their careers on proving him wrong. In the end, so much new knowledge about how our universe works came out of these mistakes. We're going out to teach young students, students that are under tremendous pressure to succeed, students who are so afraid to take risks and make mistakes, students who feel that they must have the right answer to succeed. Nobody likes to fail, but mistakes can lead to success. Mistakes can increase learning. Mistakes can even be success in disguise. As a teacher, I'll take chances, and I know I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. But I plan on discussing my mistakes with my students to be their role model on how to make mistakes. So I do a good job of making mistakes. I'll encourage my students to take chances in their learning and to make mistakes, praise their mistakes. We'll discuss their mistakes, and I'll even reward mistakes. I'd like to thank the whole Pardes community. It's been an amazing experience. Thank you to Hebrew College and Karen Rees-Medved, another big believer in Torah Lishma. Thank you to Avichai for making this opportunity possible for all of us. And I encourage all my friends and colleagues to take chances and make mistakes this year. I'd like to introduce my friend, my colleague, the wonderful Aviva Gershman.
Ein adam lomei Torah, ela mimakom shalibo chafetz. One does not learn Torah except from a place of desire. When we think of the word place, we usually think Jerusalem, New York, or for me next year, Washington, D.C. I might also be thinking of the place in a book I happen to be reading, as in, I don't want to lose my place. Rashi understands the word makom in this text to refer specifically to a tractate of Talmud, the one the student desires to study. Rashi is teaching us an important pedagogic lesson. Our students' hearts may not always desire to study the text that they are given. As an educator, it is my responsibility to make the text relevant to the lives of each of my students. In this way, I create the makom for each of my students within the text. Ein adam lomed Torah, ela mimakom shelibo chafetz. I want to return to the more literal understanding of the term makom. My heart desired to learn Torah in this place, in Israel, and at Pardes. And I'd like to recognize those who have made this place and this experience so meaningful for me. Todah to the Avichai Foundation for making it possible for me to follow my heart's desire and come to this unique place to study. Judy and Gail, your office was the makom I turned to for numerous favors, especially printing, and for personal and professional guidance. After tonight, please check your inboxes. That is the makom where you will find me. Naima, I'm not sure if you realize this, but you have been my classroom teacher continuously since the very first day of this program. Regardless of what makom I am in, I will continue to think of you as my teacher and mentor. Susan Yar, you often came to my makom, my home at night, after my children were in their makom, their beds, where they belong. Malk and Jay, it seems like so many years ago now, but only yesterday that you decided to do Masha Halei Chafetz and come on Aliyah. Thank you for blazing the trail for us and being our hands-on relocation specialists, our cheerleaders, and our co-trip planners. Jonah and Ariel, you made a brave move coming here, and then put your hearts into getting as much as you could out of being in this special makom. I hope the language, friends, and love of this place that you have gained these 2 years will last your entire lives. Acharon Acharon Chavkin. Andy, you have and will always be the makom that my heart turns to for perpetual encouragement, partnership, and inspiration. Todah Rabah for making this day possible. Pleasure to introduce my friend, fellow inspiring mom, and colleague, Nechama Makiel.
In Mishnah Avot 4:15, Rabbi Nehorai implores us, Hevei goleh l'makom Torah, exile yourself to a place of Torah. Va'al tomar shehi tavo acharecha, shechaverecha yikamuha biyadecha. And don't say to yourself that it will come to you, that your colleagues will establish it in your hands. When I first came to Pardes in 2005 as a year student, despite my ignorance of Rabbi Nehorai's words, I was eager to exile myself to a place of Torah, from Columbia, Maryland to Jerusalem. I knew I was going to a place of true Torah. Pardes exceeded my expectations, and by the third day of classes, I decided that I would stay on for another year. Indeed, over the 4 years that I have lived in Jerusalem, I have not learned only from this Beit Midrash, where my daughter Yona spent the first nearly half year of her life, but I also gleaned values from Israeli culture and society and developed an intimate relationship with this place. It will be very hard to leave. Now, once again, I am about to be goleh l'makom Torah, as I prepare to enter a classroom that in a city that is unfamiliar to me. I have decided that my pursuit of Talmud Torah is not only about making sure that I learn as much as I can, although that is certainly an important element of Talmud Torah. I also must play a part in making learning accessible to young Jews wherever they are. The Mishnah ends with the statement, Ve'el binatecha al tishan, and do not rely on your own understanding. I am indebted to many people here at Pardes whose guidance I have relied on frequently over the last 2 years. I would like to thank Susan Wall and Spieg